Well, hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Ascension Playground. This is your friend Ursie, and today I'm so excited. I have a friend and star sister joining me. Tara, hi, and welcome to the playground.
Hello, Ursula. Thank you so much
Hello.
for having me again.
You are welcome. And Tara and I met through Julia Balaz's Quantum Soul Guidance Practitioners Group. We're both certified, and we've had the joy over the past several years to engage. And today's special focus is to talk about none other than Chiron. This key-like glyph represents in each of us at our natal moment. There was a key that we were all born with, the little bit of a wound that perhaps is connected to our ancestors or to our past lives. And it's up for us today in 3D to kind of use that key to unlock a door that allows more light in. So the more that we lighten up, the more that we can meet the moment of this auspicious time of 2026 and 2027, as together we shift into what's called the rebirth or the reconnection moment of Saturn, Neptune, Pegasus, all still today at that 0 degrees Aries point. All of humanity is upgrading into a new beingness. So Tara's invited me in to have a personal reading today. And so since my Chiron is in Pisces, in the 6th house, I decided to create a little bit of a foggy ocean background with me as a swimmer, swimming in the deep oceanic waters with my own natal Chiron. But guess what? If you decide to stay and listen to this beautiful chat, you could get a free PDF from Tara by visiting her website at Quantum Sunrise. I'm going to just show you that real quick. So for anyone, before we get going, interested in getting a free PDF, all you have to do is sign up for Tara's newsletter. And here's the ebook where she takes us, look at this, welcoming the dawn of cosmic consciousness. This is an amazing, beautiful, free download of all the archetypal themes so that you can find out where is my Chiron and what does it mean for me. So if you're open to this, I invite you to really take a look at quantumsunrise.ca. That CA is really important because she's based in Canada. Welcome, Tara. That was my little intro.
Thank you, Ursula. Yeah, the Chiron ebook it's just a little PDF, but it's a page for each of the zodiac signs, and it sort of just aims to give a sense of what that wound is, what gets unlocked with the key of Chiron. And of course, our own exploration is, you know, the part where we work through our own issues, but it can also be really helpful and beneficial to look and be aware, because Chiron is kind of generational. We can, with family members, it's actually really nice to know where their Chiron is, and it gives us an awareness of those sensitive places in our more personal relationships. It can allow grace to move forward in our communications with others just more easily when we have that awareness. So it's kind of like an extra key.
Well, I found it really interesting that of all the subjects, you began the 2025, Quantum Soul Guidance Summit with all of us sharing. This was your focus, Chiron. And I know you give readings, you give a variety of readings, but today the delight of my heart is to share a little glimpse of Tara and her magic. But in this most recent summit, Tara also gave a separate reading on alchemy. Before we get going, could you share a little bit about that? Because you just blew me away with what you shared at the summit in 2026.
Oh, thanks, Ursula. They both topics. It started with Chiron, and that was really very potent and personal for me, my own journey of the Chiron return, and it was intense. I've, you know, the Chiron return happens anywhere between 46 and 51, depends on the retrogrades and so on. Um, but it can be more intense for some people than others. And of course, like everything in our chart, it's very personal and it's unique. What I found was working through Chiron's healing helped to unlock these further paths through the other asteroids, which I found that the path of healing, looking through these perhaps darker lenses, was actually just very helpful for me. And it's what naturally flows for me, so that it isn't looking at the dark for the darkness's sake or that kind of morbid fascination, but rather for seeing where the light is actually available and being almost held captive by these patterns that we have and the fears that we have. It can be quite easy to move through and continue to expand and look only at positive things, but there are times where we can feel sort of a sudden sting of something that feels like an automatic reaction. And those are signs that there's some place for us to look. It doesn't mean to say that we don't ever have that kind of reaction again, but it is more of a response rather than a reaction, so that we're consciously choosing to respond in a certain way, as opposed to something that we're inadvertently and unconsciously keeping protected, acting out and keeping us from reaching those places. So it seems that I have this path through the valley and up into the stars and beyond. And so it's a view of the sunrise from that threshold of a darker place, perhaps, but with a lightness of being, to be able to greet those shadows and then say, okay, well, we're moving along beyond that path. And that seems to be where I really have a desire to share what I've learned, so that others can also find that path for themselves. And yeah, so I thank you so much for being a willing participant. And I've begun offering alchemical readings, which start with the Chiron and then move to the other asteroids, and of course as well as the stars. But it is the asteroids that seem to call for these deeper places of healing, where we may have a perceived duality between our masculine and feminine energies. And so this alchemical reading is something that I'd like to give all of your viewers an opportunity for. And so I have a special offer with the code JOY, to have $44 off that reading. And you can see it on my website as one of the options. But I hope that what we'll do here today is just a little bit of a taste. We'll look at your Chiron, and of course, in a shorter time, we won't achieve everything we would in a longer reading, but we'll look at what the path is that gets mapped out, and then that deeper exploration also happens through, in a regular reading. So, shall I go ahead and start sharing?
Please. And as you're getting the screen share, let me just say what I think I heard. Chiron as a key will show us each our triggers. They show us what I own, like I own this. And that choice point of, do I react? Maybe that's how I was brought up,
Yeah,
ancestrally, or do I respond? And once you
very
hit that
much.
window of 46 to 51 years of age, you really can't blame your parents too much anymore, or who did you wrong. It's about ownership. And so the key to more light for me through Chiron is, yeah, please, Tara, tell me and remind me what wound I brought in on my birth moment that today I'm actually able to help share the healing with, and in myself, and perhaps with the younger generation who might also be interested.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's so, where what we come in with is something that is a pattern. It's a pattern of wounding that we're repeating the experience of in various ways, so that past lives, past incarnations, we've carried this wound, and it's familiar. And so, although it seems a dichotomy, nobody wants a wound, but it's familiar. And in that way, it's easier to stay in that wounded pattern than it is to break out and move through it. So yes, as we reach an age, this energy begins to be felt naturally. And this, as I mentioned, this duality to the nature of the wounded healer, it's an unconscious but inherent wound, and it's obscuring a gift. So I see it like a key that, there's a treasure chest and we're kind of afraid to unlock it because we're not sure what might be in there. But once we unlock it, there's light, there's a gift, there's a gem. And so let's see here. I had to add this. This actually was in my presentation from the 2025 Quantum Soul Guidance Summit, but the art I had to share with you, Ursula. And so this is John Singer Sargent, and the painting is of Chiron and Achilles, because Chiron, who was his own wound, he was rejected at birth, he was a centaur. And so his wound is, from his first coming into the world, he's guided and nurtured because he's found by Apollo and Artemis, rather, and he becomes a mentor to the children of the gods. And so I really love the vibrancy of the color in this painting. It just really kind of, I find something very beautiful and bright and hopeful about this emanation of the energy from this. And we can aim our bow, and with Jupiter's energy, this actually really felt poignant and significant for you in more ways than one. The first thing, looking at your chart, Chiron is aspecting all of these points. So I realize it's super busy. We won't look at all of it, but we can see where Chiron is aspecting so many different places on your chart. And this key that unlocks the potential, this 50.7 year orbit, he was discovered in 1977. So it's really quite amazing that it's almost like in a collective way, we weren't ready to acknowledge this until more recent times. And it corresponds with so many of these waves of volunteers that we've heard spoken about and have experience of from Dolores. And this includes Blu-ray and Indigo and Crystal Souls. So from this point forward, what we see here with your reading is your Chiron in Pisces this is about boundaries and spirituality. The boundaries are blurred, so it's not very clear where it's safe to have an experience, a discussion, an opinion about spirituality. And of course, knowing you today in the here and now, we're speaking more of this would have been, you've already had a Chiron return. And so this would have been the earlier experience. So we're kind of looking back at the evolution of where is Ursula now. And there could have been some seeking of escape from manifesting, from making things come to be, because that always was met with some oppositional kind of energy to what you were expecting. And this kind of relates maybe more to the sixth house where Chiron's located. So this is the house of service. I serve, I do, health, our habits. And a personal sense of individuality, emotional health, and the physical body. Again, this is in the first decan as well. So this is more relating to the body, physical experiences. Minimizing the need for self-care will be something that has shown up, I think, through life, that you may begin to feel a need, but as soon as that starts to be something where you would lean towards, okay, let me actually address this from, my own self-care, that would have been minimized. It would have been, okay, there's something else more important. So it wouldn't have been utterly dismissed, but it would have been always taking second place, or, pushed aside for something else that was more urgent and needed your attention. This would also combine with compartmentalizing. So at some point that would have started to shift over into like, okay, that's my physical body. Okay, I can't deal with that right now. And so then we start to almost like act as if our bodies are separate from our daily experiences and activities and what we're thinking. And that is, I think, something that a lot of people can relate to as well. We get very busy, we have commitments, we have people have expectations of us. And while we have to balance these, we're also coming to a time, not individually for you in that reading, but collectively, we are also coming to a time where we are recognizing that we do not benefit by putting ourselves last from the perspective of care for our bodies. Now, also, your Chiron is opposite Tuban. So I've put this little dragon in the corner because it looks more obviously when we look at your chart, we see the opposition to your ascendant, when in fact, I think it's that Tuban energy that is what maybe is more, that beautiful dragon, maybe what's inside that box, inside the treasure box. And there's light there. So what may have been experienced as something to be feared, to be avoided, that is judged as being less valuable. And so there may be something interesting there for me to explore, but that's less valuable and it is not being encouraged by others. So there's an expectation not to embrace those kinds of things. And that, I think, probably affected you, imprinted. It's like a conditioning in life that it was better left untouched. And there's a delicate balance in that. There's not an absolute statement of these things being true or unhelpful. It's a matter of discerning the balance. And we'll come to see how that Libra point of balance also comes into play when we begin to look, actually at the next slide. I got ahead of myself. The next one's here. We see the conjunctions to your Chiron. Super interesting. There's so much here. Your Chiron is conjunct Jupiter. It's also conjunct your moon and conjunct Lelea Kuhonua, which is a less personal aspect to this, but I wanted to include it because it's so poignant and potent for this time. And as you already have moved through your Chiron return, I feel like this Lele, I call her Lele energy, it's a lot easier than trying to get the whole mouthful out, and forgive me if I've mispronounced it. This beautiful energy coming full circle. So I feel like that's more of a part 2 for Ursula that I wanted to call attention to. But this conjunct the moon in the 6th house, we spoke about some of these energies and frequencies of conditioning, of sort of avoidance, maybe not outright fear conditioning, but just, here's the way that it's proper to move through life. And that doesn't need to be examined. Conjunct your moon, this presents to me the suggestion of a wound with the relationship with the mother, or a significant woman as a parent or a parental kind of role, but a mother wound where this delicate, sensitive you as a young girl just wasn't receiving that kind of nurturing that you just kind of knew you needed, like a tenderness and a gentleness that doesn't seem like it was likely experienced by you in early childhood. And that would be like a deep pain that could lead to maybe a habit of overcompensating through your own life and with your own family, so that you don't want that experience to be had. You've moved through that and reconciled some of that for yourself, and you understand what was missing and what was desired. And the pattern, though, leads to the overgiving in your own being, overgiving within your own family, family unit and family of friends, in career, in work, in any outside communities. This sixth house service and doing could go into overdrive, and Jupiter may help. Jupiter might have had something to do with this, because Jupiter's always finding another way that we could be of service. And that isn't necessarily always Jupiter's aim. He's finding something else that is calling your interest and, calling towards your energy, so things that feel that your energy is called towards for you to participate in. And without the discernment that is developed through life, that energetic throwing yourself into a new project could have also led to throwing yourself into a circumstance where more is asked of you than is offered to you. And that cup can become empty. We can feel happy to be needed and wanted and called on, and yet the giving kind of just doesn't end and isn't reciprocal. That can become a difficulty. And I mean, I think that for obvious reasons, that could be a difficulty. But again, through life, we move through and develop discernment. With Chiron, the nature of it is likely that it's through repetition and learning. So it's kind of like a square energy in that way. There's a tension. We meet that intersection again. And maybe we kind of always choose the experience that brings us back into the wounded experience. And that's the pattern. That's the unconscious nature of the pattern. And so the whole point of this is, let's look at it. Let's see it. Now we can recognize what it is that's compelling that behavior, and recognize where, like, oh, I always thought that was just me. I always thought that's just me, how I am. Well, yes, it is. But rather than have defensiveness for it and say, why do people hurt me? And why can't people see? The defensiveness is actually what's keeping that pattern held in place. Because when we can acknowledge it, we acknowledge the tenderness, the wound, which, who wants to leave that open? It's like pouring salt in a wound. Why would we do that? In fact, the air is needed to heal. So the sunlight is needed to heal. And so I think that through life, it's likely that those experiences of in the childhood home, and then later in our own home, perhaps through work and career, we might have encountered this experience in similar ways that could also include the wounding of this sort of mother relationship. So there could be someone in work and career that felt a real closeness and a kinship with, that actually, in fact, didn't get it like I thought. And those are those jarring moments. So this is where we either move through Chiron's wisdom with an intention for evolution, or if we kind of just go, no, 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 I don't need that kind of disruption, we end up getting to the return, and then it's revolution time because we can't avoid it. And so now when we move to this yod aspect, which this finger of God aspect holds tension. So the yod, its nature is that where it's pointing to, the apex of it, which is where your Chiron is the leading energy and frequency that's going to feel. So that wound, it's like we have something pointed. You poke a finger in a wound, it's kind of like this energy. There is a tension between the other 2 points that can't quite be resolved. And it's not a matter of finding the right thing to get rid of it. It's not like a square where we have to find the right way to move through that. And then in doing so, we resolve it. It's not quite that clean or simple. It's more of an energetic tension that we have to learn to navigate. We have to learn to reconcile that tension within ourselves, not the action that will remove the tension, but what is it, that tension we're feeling, that is in and of itself part of that pattern and wounding. And it is where our deepest unconscious patterns lie, because that's the part that just like, well, that's just me. Like, don't come at me. That's how I am. And yet, if we give ourselves the grace and compassion to look deeply at those places that we defend, this is where we can find that key finds a little slot to slide into. And it can be very tender, but this is where we unlock what magic is available. Now, in this case, this yod is formed with Chiron at the apex, and your north node and the asteroid Panacea are sextile one another. They are each quincunxing this tension, this awkward energy with Chiron. So with the north node, what we see is this, there's the potential. This is our, our north node is our, I don't want to say destiny in the sense that it's fated, like no matter what, but it is where we're going. And the road there and how much we enjoy our arrival, that part is down to how it is we choose to engage with it. So the energies of this yod are really kind of saying, okay, there's a 12th or rather 11th house for your north node. What you aspire to, what you hope and wish for is very easily interacting with Panacea, who is, interestingly, she's the great granddaughter of Jupiter. And we see Jupiter conjunction here. So this energy is there. Now, Panacea is the need to have the solution, the need to have the salve. Where someone or something is upset or hurting or uncomfortable, Panacea just wants to come in and make that better. Panacea is in the second house in Libra. And so little Ursula in your childhood years would have felt something in this house of what you have and what you value. Something is disrupted, the energy, something's not right. What do I do? What do I have to do? What do I have to do to make it better? And so there would have been this experience that you felt you were the one responsible for taking away the discomfort of whatever the situation is. And of course, a child is never responsible for the discomfort of adults. And yet there would have been this kind of really emotionally heavy feeling of responsibility, I think, that would have been experienced by you, whether or not it was intentionally, you know, I don't want to say inflicted, but like if the circumstances for that were generated by those in your home, the parental unit or the larger family unit or circumstance, I don't know that that even would have necessarily been intentional, but the very tender, sensitive nature that you have, this Piscean moon is very etheric, it's very emotional. And so there just would have been this sense that, like, even if nobody asked you, there would have just been a sense that I obviously need to fix it, which is not necessarily the case. And so Jupiter would be happy to kind of keep saying, well, move to the next thing. Now that we've fixed this, let's move to the next thing. Because there's also this sense of usefulness when it did work, when you did do it, through overgiving, through overcompensating for what it is that in that dynamic felt was missing. Does that all kind of mesh? And I hope the glyph is visible here. I had to do some crafty. Looks like a C with a piece, a little bit of a caduceus kind of shape to it. And that's just down here in Libra. So that balance, it would have always been about feeling like you had to find that energetic and emotional balance when it wasn't always yours to manage.
Wow. Well, my feedback would be thank you. She's never come on my radar, Panacea, and I've never seen that yod to Chiron. So thank you, because you mentioned at the beginning of this conversation that it's mm, these asteroids or these before we get to the fixed stars sometimes. So it's this idea of we're working with our personal planets, outer planets, generational planets, and also the asteroids. And then there's two belts of asteroids, and then the fixed stars. So I really want to say thank you. It lands well because I'm the daughter of an alcoholic. And in our family system of 7 children, I was the second eldest, made to feel responsible for taking care of my younger siblings. But part of it now, looking when I see the proof that I signed up for this, and my father played his role and my mom played hers, that owning the part that I do inhale a certain kind of responsibility for the ones around me, whether it's in my family, my home, my community. And so just being aware of that helps me give grace to my own inner child. Because you said it, I love how you bring it back, the wound, like in your early days, because I can see the wound easier, like, oh, yeah, I did feel that way. I remember that. And
Yeah.
then as an adult, you forget that. And I'm just operating as normal. Of course, I'll take on more. And so thank you for this, because I think this little mini reading, it's already making me go, oh, thanks, mom and dad. Like, you really, it was me too. It wasn't just you guys, it was me
Yes.
in that mix of energy.
It's yes, I love that you bring that up because really with hindsight, and I think this is part of why these readings feel so this particular path of exploring through the stars and the asteroids is because, with hindsight, as the expression goes, hindsight is 2020. And so we can look back at what we have already traversed in some part, and we can see where it's like, oh, well, look, stuff fell out of my bag there. If we go off on a journey, we can look back and kind of go, hang on a minute, I was losing
Yeah.
stuff out of my bag that I've been carrying. Like,
Yeah.
I have to go see if that's precious or not. First of
Yeah.
all, do I need it? Do I want it? And so um, this brings us to this kite aspect, which I think is more like Ursula today. This is really beautiful, powerful, very powerful energy here. But what we have is moving beyond that conditioning or expectation of go fix everything. And we have, Ursula became, through that journey, familiar with and comfortable with looking at some of those things that she was told to leave aside. Young Ursula was said, don't go there. That's a mess. Don't look at those things. What we see with the kite is Chiron at the tail of the kite and pointing at the top towards, we have Pluto at the tip of this kite, which we're looking at that dynamic of the opposition there, and Pluto being in the 12th house of what you know. So now with experience, you just, I mean, you've seen some things, you know some things. Some of these things are the deeper, darker parts of our nature or our lived experience, and so on. You've reconciled this as a reality, and you know, it's a matter of, I can accept this. It's not that I haven't looked at it and so it doesn't exist, or I'm pretending it doesn't exist. But these would have been those things that were like, be the band-aid on top, Ursula. Don't let anybody see that. Just be the band-aid on top. And you're now at a place where this isn't necessary or helpful, and you've moved past that. It's really potent energy with the trine from Chiron to Sirius and Orcus, which is another asteroid. And Orcus is actually the punisher of broken oaths. So it's very intense. There's an exactitude and a need for radical truth with Orcus, like an absolute, what's the word? An intolerance for compromising integrity. And with Sirius and this Cancer energy, this explains a lot from your, I think it seems a natural evolution of your own experience of being mothered to what you know to be a healthy mothering experience. And you have explored that within yourself to be able to offer it in your own family, and in for you as the mother in that role, as opposed to the child receiving. So there's an evolution there that took place as it moved through your house. That 10th house of Sirius and Orcus in Cancer, this is what you achieve. And so you've really moved through, and with maturity, it's really like quite a map through the houses, the evolution of yourself, bringing calm and honest wisdom even through difficult truths. And then with Neptune in your 3rd house, being the other sort of arm of the kite, these are where, and this is in Scorpio, so these can be, you know, really sharp and maybe painful insights, but these bring depth and wisdom and fullness to the experiences, so that you're making accessible the alchemy, the transmutation of that wound into something that can be offered as wisdom and guidance. And really, it's interesting, that's the journey of Chiron, but this is the journey of your evolving Chiron, is really kind of around this energy of nurturing and mothering energy, and understanding, developing the wisdom and discernment to know the balance between what's asked for, what's offered, what's reciprocated, all of those lines around giving and receiving, to maintain healthy boundaries for yourself. And so that comes right back to that 6th house of habits, and you know, your own habits of caring for the body, caring for self, being where this wisdom helps you in very concrete ways, and also this freedom to look at other ways. There's a break with conventionality that's also there. And I feel like that's where this moves to your art, that, you know, all of those pieces of finding the appropriate avenue for success, because this is what is acceptable in the world, and not necessarily always considering the wholeness of what we wish to bring out to the world. And I somehow, this image, I wasn't looking for it, it just kind of grabbed me, and I was like, we burst the bubble and the light just goes everywhere. And so yeah, see this like Ursula's paintbrush punctures through the bubble of color there. And apparently you didn't want to come out in color, but thank you. So,
Wow.
yeah, thank you, Ursula.
I don't even know where to begin. Um, to be honest, I'm a little choked up because you brought me on this journey, Tara, for this little mini reading, and which was quite remarkable how you could put the tea leaves together and create kind of a beautiful potential story. And whether it resonated in my life or not, you nailed it. And I can see where a couple of things: the overgiving, the feeling over responsible, the working. My love language, my husband, my poor husband, he didn't know this before we married, but is service. You really light my heart when you help me with all these children and animals and work and moving paintings. And um so it's this idea of, why didn't I choose a love language of gift receiving? That would be so antithetical to, like, I just don't understand. Like, gifts don't, like physical gifts, like, oh no, I'm a terrible gift buyer too. And it's like, because I don't get the material. But boy, if you give me the gift of service, like help me figure something out, or my poor husband, help me move this because it doesn't look right. The sofa again has to be moved. Um, it does go back to my early childhood and then my natal chart at the moment of my birth. And so thank you, because I have not tuned in to Orcus. I knew about my kite with Sirius, but I got to tell you, I, ending with that rainbow orb, there's a part of me that is afraid to share who I truly am and paint. Like, I know myself and I'm painting through myself and my journey, but you've just inspired me to like start talking about why I keep painting the same sacred geometry over and over again. And it's just not normal. It's not in the world of painting yet. And so I've already said the time will be later or never. It's just a joy to do it. But I'm not sharing myself North Node in Leo in the 11th house. I do like to hide behind, let other people share their joy, and I'm fine being of service. But your reading today is reminding me that there is something else in me that wants to come forward and just be who I am without that inhibition. My mother wound, you know, and a Chinese mom, we girls don't really speak or show themselves or talk. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. So I was the one in the family, the teenager that said, can't we all just get around the table and talk about it? Like, what is happening? And no, the culture that my parents came from, and we just don't talk about dirty laundry. We pretend like it never happened. And then we show up
Yeah.
in Sunday church in our pew, 9 people, 7 children, and pretend everything's fine. So that was
Yeah.
part of my journey. But now at my ripe age of early 60s, if hearing this reading brings you light, like, one, you don't have to always give. And believe me, I can't stand that oxygen mask metaphor about put your oxygen mask on before you help your children or loved ones. I was like, okay, I don't like that one for a reason. And I think maybe it's because I don't like to do it. I think I can do it all. I just got to work faster. So thank you. I think this, even when you think you're done with your Chiron and you're feeling pretty good, it's that subconscious that you brought forward, that pattern of, you know, I am the one that wants to talk about radical truths. And I do, and I've been holding it. So
It's
even if it's
true,
just that
right?
one little pattern,
Yeah.
you get
There's,
a
it's
reading.
like It's like if we open, if I like analogies. The visuals work for me, and so I sometimes make analogies that sound a little crazy. But if we stick with that treasure box, and if we opened the key, and let's say we did it a while ago, maybe we were proactive, and so that someone watching this says, I'm coming up to my 50th, but I've been digging deep into my Chiron work for years, and like I've kind of got a handle on this. Okay, and no doubt, I mean that's true. If we consciously approach this, we can address some of these issues without them being like, jarring with the impact, or at least we can minimize it, let's say, take some of that harshness off. But when we look back with hindsight, it's sort of like going back and saying, okay, well, I used the key, I opened my treasure box, and I left with, my sacks of bullion. But when we go back, there's gold dust in there, or like a
I
couple of
know.
coins fell out and I didn't realize it. And actually, you know what? Those are the most beautiful. Look at
Yeah.
that. That's how
Or a
beautiful that
diamond
is.
fell out. Yeah.
Yeah, it really, there's something that allows us to activate beyond that first salve.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to re-echo as a double Virgo Pisces moon. I learned hand analysis from Richard Unger. He wrote the book Life Prints. And so when he gave me a hand reading, he said, "Oh, look, did you know you have this rare treasure box in your hand? And it's like a time capsule that's waiting to come out. It's a star with a box around it in
What?
my hand." So I'm just giving you, I think that when you get a mini reading from Tara, she's channeling in different streams of awareness and intelligence. And she goes way beyond anything Chat GPT can do. So thank you, because you didn't know that. Like it's right here. And I
No,
never
yeah.
understood what it means. But now you've given me a little bit of more clues to go back and look at my natal kite, and to go look at that finger of God, the yod, that's going to give me a poke once in a while. Let's see how she's doing with her Chiron, you know? So thank you, thank you. And you guys, if this has touched your heart in any way and you would like a reading with Tara, please go visit her website at quantumsunrise.ca and sign up. Again, her code for a $44 off discount is joy. So, in that spirit of joy, from my heart to yours, thank you, Tara, for this. I so appreciate and see you and value you. Till next
Thank
time,
you.
everybody, you're welcome. We'll see you on the Ascension Playground.